Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Now, when we look at, the topics of discussion that they were very busy with yesterday, and many of the ministers made a point of saying this, it was a very packed agenda. What are the key areas that you see that they really need to be taking into consideration as we sort of close off the year now?
Well, thank you for having me. I believe the most important things of the discussion from our own analysis will be, number one, the projections of global demand going forward in 2020 and the likelihood that there could be a slow in the growth in the Chinese economy, things related to the growth in the U.S. shale oil production, things related also to bringing the supply and demand into balance, and that's where these discussions actually could take a bit of time in order to determine where the the demand on OPEC crude will look like in 2020. So I believe these will be very important discussion issues coming on the table, in addition to, in fact, the U.S. oil inventories, which were projected to grow in the year 2020 if the U.S. oil production continues to grow and without any production adjustments from OPEC until now. But we believe with any production adjustments coming from OPEC in this meeting, that will have a remarkable impact in the year 2020.
Now, we can forgive them in many ways for maybe running a bit late on us and not coming up with this decision. But interestingly enough, today when we talked with the ministers and we listened to that opening session there, it was very much about the strength and unity, and it was very much about being committed to their goals and being, as His Royal Highness said himself, the believers were in the room, and he wanted to make sure that there was a commitment there and that a strong message was sent to the market and that they would in fact do what they say and really carry out all of their obligations to make sure there was a stable market. What do you think in terms of a more cohesive unity and perhaps a stronger one among OPEC Plus now going forward?
Well, I believe the OPEC Plus alliance is extremely important in stabilizing the market, bringing the market into supply and demand imbalance. If we look back before the OPEC Plus alliance that took place in 2016, we had a huge rise in oil inventories, and once that historical agreement and the declaration of cooperation happened since 2016, oil markets has been a lot more stable than before. So I believe continuing the coherence and the unity and this strategic alliance is extremely important going forward. Now, the unity. When we talk about the unity, the benefits of this alliance will be beneficial for all the members, and that's why I think they need. The OPEC Plus will have to maintain the unity and the alliance in order to benefit not just the OPEC members but also the whole wider members of this strategic alliance.
Indeed, because of course we're here now on the 3rd anniversary of the Declaration of Cooperation. But I think one thing that Mr. Barkindo and, the President this year and the President the year before too, and indeed I think we're hearing it, from His Royal Highness as well, they want to see this continue. And it's very important that it continues, but it has to have more of a reason. And I think many ways, looking at this being a joint press conference this afternoon, this will also be a very important signal and message, I think.
Well, absolutely. I think continuing the OPEC Plus alliance is certainly needed, and now we're looking into a Q1 agreement until March 2020. But I believe the market needs more certainty that will continue throughout the year 2020. The market still needs certainty. It needs to reduce volatility. We need to contain the markets, and I believe maintaining the non-OPEC members within this OPEC non-OPEC alliance is extremely important to maintain the market stability going forward.
Now, of course, when you look at, your projections and what your clients are looking at from you, you talk about that stability. I suppose it's something we can never guarantee in the market, but it's about bringing some sense of stability into it. And also these are rather reactive markets too. So I guess, the emotional connectivity of having, the sense of stability is very important here. It'll never be perfect. But what are your clients sort of looking for, and what is the big worry? Supply looks like we're going to have a little bit more extra supply again next year. How do they deal with that? First quarter, is it really about managing the market, micromanaging the market from now on, because things change so quickly?
Well, I believe the biggest concern for the oil industry now is global demand. If we continue to see a slow global demand or growth in global economy, that will certainly impact on the demand. And if we continue to see a global rise in non-OPEC production, especially coming from the U.S. tight oil production, that will certainly have a major impact on the markets. So number one, the most important concern is the demand for oil and the growth and the U.S. or the production that will have an impact on the market. So the oil industry, I think they are more important about the continuing the investments. So these are the physical traders, let's say. So maintaining a market, a sustainable price that can maintains sustainable investments going into the market is extremely important, and that's what's essentially important for our clients at this time.
So, of course, we're seeing continued investment and some great investment in the OPEC countries. Many of the OPEC countries really looking at big budget ticket items like coming into the oil industry and even into beyond that the refining industry, the petrochemical industry. So when we look at the OPEC countries, we're certainly seeing the investment. But in perhaps non-OPEC players, maybe there's not as much investment, and that's perhaps a concern too for the longer term, because ultimately if we have a lack of investment, you know, we could see a price rise very soon.
Absolutely. Well, if we, because you know, most of the OPEC countries are still where the most of the economies are very much driven by oil. However, when you go to non-OPEC countries, it's still moving towards a low carbon and energy transition, and that could be a major reason. But I believe the maintaining investments in the oil industry is extremely important, because hydrocarbons will continue to play a key role in the energy mix, in the global energy mix, until at least 20 years from now. So if lack of investments, even from out of the OPEC countries, will have an impact on the oil markets, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all it's a one world where all the players will affect each other. So I believe maintaining the investments both within the OPEC and non-OPEC countries is extremely important to maintain the sustainability of the industry.
And of course, they have to do this almost on a dual path. I mean, I think every international oil company and all the energy companies are actually putting a lot of investment into renewable as well, into another source, you know, non-conventional sort of. But so it's I mean, that transition of energy, it's quite a delicate one, but it needs investments on both sides.
Absolutely. Well, I agree that, well, sustainable energy investments is important to not to be biased to any one source of energy. Oil, natural gas, renewables, even nuclear energy. Because at the end of the day, you need to maintain rising energy demand. But what I would say is we cannot be biased to any one source of energy over the other, because we need to be realistic about where the most feasible source of energy that will look like, and the most cheapest, the one that can alleviate energy poverty for more than 1 billion people living on Earth. One source of energy that will be environmentally friendly, that is sustainable, and that is affordable. So whether that's going to be oil, whether that's going to be gas or renewables, I believe they all need to contribute to that rising energy demand that will maintain the growth of this world, the economic growth of this world.
Absolutely, and that's so essential. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Yusuf. We're always grateful to see you. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure, Eithne. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
And there we had Dr. Yusuf Alshammari there talking about, you know, looking at all of the variables that are impacting what's going on here at the OPEC meeting.